Before the bombs fell, Boston didn't descend into chaos all at once. At sites like this one, order still existed, lines were formed, ledgers were checked, and the desperate were promised they would not be forgotten. This was the Boston Police rationing site, a pair of community basketball courts repurposed into a lifeline. Food, medicine, supplies brought in by rail, and handed out under armed watch. At least, that was the plan. A small checkpoint office sits just outside the warehouse, used by officers making sure everything stayed civil. Logged in on the terminal, Detective Francis Perry. The first message is brief, dismissive. Attention officers, has been brought to my attention that there have been complaints about shortages and missing items. Most likely this is just some civvy trying to weasel a bit more out of the system, but make sure to keep an eye on the lines. If I see another news story about pickpockets stealing medical supplies from old ladies right under our noses again, I will personally make sure you are doing paperwork on terminals from last century for the rest of the year. Sergeant S. Randall, Boston PD, 3rd Precinct. Shifts are to be scheduled by Detective Perry from the Boston Police Department in conjunction with Sergeant Reese from the Army Reserves. There will be at least 2 officers present during distribution hours, from 7 a.m. to 1900. Army personnel are responsible for loading and unloading goods from the train. Police personnel for checking and receiving ledgers and distributing rations to civilians. Detective McDonald left a message here, quiet, urgent, and afraid.
That son of a bitch Sergeant Reiser caught me trying to have a look in the warehouse. And that asshole actually drew his weapon on me. Look, Perry, I know you two came up together and all, but I'm telling you that guy is dirty, and I need you to have my back on this. Those ration crates didn't just go missing on their own, and it's our job to make sure they're getting to the people who need them. Just lean on him a bit, okay? See if he'll let you in the warehouse to have a look around. McDonald out.
Inside the warehouse is a small army terminal with the user, Sergeant John Reese, still logged in with some personal journal entries still accessible. Officers from the Boston Police do not have clearance to enter the depot warehouse and are not permitted to be snooping around under any circumstances. I don't care if they brought you dinner if you joke around with them. I've been informed that there is a current investigation into ration shortages into their unit, and I'm not going to have a problem with their men getting pinned on us. And if you see Detective McDonald near the warehouse again, you are to place him under military arrest and bring him to me. Sergeant J. Reese, 708th Infantry Division. Beneath the warehouse, a network of utility tunnels runs toward the old turnpike. They sit below the rationing site, out of sight of the distribution lines and the warehouse floor. These tunnels would have made it easy to move supplies without logging them, without questions, and without anyone on the surface noticing. It's down here that the missing rations finally make sense. Partway through the tunnel, a body rests against the concrete wall. The uniform is recognizable, army fatigues worn with time. The remains belong to Sergeant John Reese of the Army Reserve. There's no signs of guards, no official report, no indication anyone ever came looking for him. Just his holotape laying next to him and his weapon.
We need to talk, Perry. Your partner keeps sticking his nose where it shouldn't be. I don't care if he's a cop. If he keeps sniffing around the tracks, he's liable to get hit by the train. Are we clear? Anyway, I've got this stuff moved down into the utility tunnels, but it's burning a hole in my pocket. I don't want to hear any more excuses about it being hard to fence. People would pay top dollar for this stuff.
Further along the tunnel, another body comes into view. A police baton and a service revolver lay beside him with his holotape.
Jack, this is Perry. What's taking you so long, cuz? You should have moved more than half this stuff by now. I've got that sanctimonious prick McDonald breathing down my neck. Partner my ass. We gotta get this stuff out of here and skip town before Reese catches on. We'll let his dumb ass take the fall for this and come back in a week or so and say our grandma was having health problems down in New York. Just make sure you're ready tonight and... Who's there? You better show yourself, asshole.
Perry realized too late that Reese had overheard him, and Reese realized Perry was planning to let him take the fall. They killed one another here beneath the rationing site. Their bodies were left where they fell, only a short distance apart. The stolen supplies never reached the people waiting above, and when the bombs fell, no one came looking for them. Just outside the rationing site, 3 skeletons' remains are gathered behind a vehicle, frozen in the middle of a fight they never finished. The trunk has been forced open and a small safe sits inside, its contents spilled out across the pavement. Paper money lies scattered between them, still clutched in skeletal hands. With food being rationed and medical supplies already disappearing, money no longer had much value here. But old habits are hard to break, even when the world is falling apart. Whatever deal they made collapsed the moment the safe was open, and none of them lived long enough to regret it. Just up the hill from the Boston Police rationing site, 5 skeletal remains are gathered around a set of picnic tables, still seated where they were eating. Food and plates remain on the table, untouched since the moment everything came to an end. It looks like an ordinary gathering, the kind of small break people took while waiting in lines or passing time nearby. One of the skeletals stands by a barbecue grill, still wearing a chef's hat, caught mid-task. There's no sign of panic or an attempt to run. Whatever warning was there, it came too late for them to leave. Across the street from the Boston Public Library is the Pulaski Preservation Shelter. Inside, near the center of the shelter, are the skeletal remains of a woman. She is still holding several library books in her arms. The books were never returned. When the sirens sounded, she likely ran from the library and took shelter here, grabbing whatever she had with her. The shelter sealed shut before she could leave. She survived the blast, but she didn't survive what came after. On a small hill just outside Poseidon Energy Turbine Number 1, several military ground vehicles are parked near the wreckage of a crashed military aircraft. Inside one of the ground vehicles, the skeletal remains of a soldier lies on a medical stretcher, still positioned for treatment. The vehicle never left, and the stretcher was never cleared. At the base of the Dartmouth Professional Building, a half-collapsed skyscraper leans into its side, crushing part of the structure and cutting the lower floors off from the street. Inside, a small office area has been converted into a shelter, its original purpose still barely visible beneath the signs of long-term use. 2 sleeping bags are laid out on opposite sides of the room, spaced apart as if occupants were trying to preserve some sense of privacy. One side of the room has been carefully marked off with chalk lines, drawn across the floor, forming the outline of a separate room where no walls could be built. Behind the receptionist's desk, the skeletal remains of a woman rests against the floor. A small amount of food sits nearby, untouched. In her hand still holds the container of rat poison. A short distance away, partially hidden behind a couch, lies the skeletal remains of a man. His own food rations are still beside him, carefully set down rather than discarded. Near him is an empty container of industrial coolant. They had prepared to survive here, at least for a while. In the end, they decided not to wait and see how long that would be.